Hey, folks, welcome back into another episode of the Mark and Austin Show on the Mark Lesko Podcast, covering all things Penn State football here. We have a special guest today. We have Gregg Garrity with us, who is a former player for the Nittany Lions. And like we said in some past episodes, we're going to talk a little bit about the lifting program, maybe sneak in a couple extra questions for Gregg about the state of the program, his thoughts, kind of how things are going. So please welcome Gregg to the show.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. Always good to hop on with you.
Yeah,
And of
Gregg,
course,
thanks
we
again
also
for
have
joining
Mark.
us, man. Yeah, appreciate you joining us, Gregg. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Again, like we said, we want to talk the Penn State lifting program. I wanted to get it from Gregg, former player who was on the 2016 Big Ten championship team. We talk about where we are now as a program, and I say we just including fans. Austin and I obviously never played, but where we are as a program and, how far we've come from where Franklin started, his first victory in Ireland, to now. And Gregg's class really laid that foundation. His class is on the wall of the stadium, 2016. Great season. Ended up going to the Rose Bowl, Big Ten champions, everything. So we have Gregg's class to thank for really giving us this momentum to now. Really never lost that momentum. Last year in 2020 was a bit of a hiccup, but where we are now is, we've come a long way, and it's been a long time coming, especially for those of us who were there in 2011, like Austin and I, and had that scandal, and it's just been. I've been waiting for a long time to have a good team like this going into the season. So again, we wanted to talk about the lifting program and what a difference it's made. Particularly last season under Chuck Losey, which was his first season. Before that, it was Dwight Galt. So, Gregg, first of all, do you think the lifting program has been a huge factor in Penn State's success, especially last year?
Yeah. I mean, you look at any college football program, and I've seen it said a lot of times where like the most important hire is the strength coach. That's who the players spend the most time with, the strength staff. That's how you develop into a Division I athlete from a high school student or high school player, and it's who and how you build a culture in terms of a team. So I look at my time under that staff, under Franklin's staff with Coach Galt. We called him Deej. And it was just at least it seemed like a complete 180 from the previous staff with O'Brien, and the strength coach then was Coach Fitzgerald. In terms of Coach Galt's history, like you look at the athletic freaks that he's produced. I mean, even before Penn State, the one that always stuck out to me was Vernon Davis. Like that dude was massive. He was strong, fast. He could do it all. And then, you look at somebody like Torrey Smith, out of Maryland, super small, but still very strong, very fast, kind of good all around player. And the players that I played with, you have your obviously Saquon Barkley's that stick out, Mike Gesicki, Miles Sanders. I could literally go on and on. Nick Scott, I attribute his success in the NFL that he's having right now to the strength program at Penn State. So, as I said before, it's kind of a consensus. The most important hire in a college football program is the strength coach, and we're starting with Galt and transitioning to Chuck. You're seeing the results on the field, and again, I think a huge part of that is the strength staff and their program.
Absolutely. And the type of training that they're doing. And we talked before a little bit about what they used to do under Joe Paterno, and that was machines, very little free weights, did everything till failure. My lifting coach from high school used to help with that lifting program under JT, and
Yep.
he told me pretty much everything that they did, and it was machines till failure. and how that it was mainly for endurance and I believe testosterone production is what their main focus was. That was one thing that one of my professors told me, who was a part of that program when I took my training class at Penn State. It was mainly focused on testosterone and endurance, and it didn't really correlate to athletic performance, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So when O'Brien came in, obviously they gutted the weight room, put all the stuff they have in now, I think still to this day. A lot of free weights, pretty much. Places to run, do agility. So it was a complete 180. And then Franklin came in, pretty much did similar stuff with Dwight Galt and now Chuck Losey. So, Greg, in your experience, because you were Franklin's first year, or right, you never had
So
O'Brien.
yeah, I did. I had 1 year under O'Brien.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I had 1 year. So my freshman year was with O'Brien and Fitzgerald, which was kind of a shell shock going from high school to college in general. And then going from that staff to Franklin with Galt, kind of another 180 where I shouldn't say 180. It was just another pivot where we're doing a bunch of different stuff, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, so I did get a kind of a, and it was only from what, June, that would have been June of 2013 through basically the end of the season, December of 2013. So it was only like 6 months with that staff and that program. So I only got a very small dose of what that program was like.
Yeah, I remember you saying that because I couldn't remember if you were Franklin's first year, but I remember you saying when Franklin came in, he made it clear, like, this is my team. And he was pretty tough on you guys, especially with the conditioning and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. He was trying to set the tone for sure. I know he came in, when was that? It would have been January of 2014 or February 2014. And the first thing on the agenda, at least team wise, not including like recruiting or, coaching staff wise, in terms of what we were doing, the first thing on the agenda when they got there was winter workouts, which is a compilation of a lifting program as well as conditioning. And to be honest with you, winter workouts are really designed just to kind of break you. And it's supposed to, obviously build character, build the culture and the program, and get you in shape. But they were trying to set the tone. I mean, we were starting workouts at 5:30. So you had to be literally on the field, usually by 5 to, you had to do your own stretching, get warmed up. And starting at 5:30 and you usually end around 7, I want to say. So for an hour and a half, it was just brutal running, conditioning, sled work, mat drills. I mean, it was that first winter workouts was brutal for sure. The only thing I don't miss from my time at Penn State is winter workouts. So yeah, that was tough. That was tough. But of course, that's kind of what sets the great from good. So
Was it usually outside, Greg?
no, we use the indoor facility. I mean, you think about 5 a.m. State College, January, February, like
too cold.
Yeah, and even in the indoor facility, like there's no heat. It's just kind of a big tin can, essentially. So it still wasn't much warmer, but it wasn't like ice or snow. But once you got moving, you wanted it to be cooler. So yeah, but we weren't inside, even though it wasn't like nice conditions in there either.
Yeah, I remember one of O'Brien's first videos. It was winter workouts. They had them outside.
They used to do those outside. Yeah.
And that's why I remember.
I just remember because the news broke that O'Brien was leaving on like New Year's Eve. So we, at that point, like that week before or a few days before he left, we had like a week or two left of, I guess it would have been 2 weeks of winter break. So we were home enjoying time with family, and I was dreading going back for winter workouts to do them outside. And that was one little silver lining. Whenever they left, I was like, okay, thank God we don't need to do winter workouts. little did I know the new staff, it was just going to be just as brutal. So that silver lining got erased rather quickly.
But at least it was inside, right, Greg?
Yeah,
With Franklin.
I guess that's one way to look at it. But yeah, it was not fun, that's for sure.
It's a little bit of a silver lining there.
Yeah.
If I could kind of just dive in a little bit here and kind of just go over, generally speaking, what do you think? What are generally kind of some of the things that you might do during winter conditioning,
Yeah.
and then contrast that with what you do through the summer,
Okay.
during camp?
Yeah. So winter, I would say, is all about intensity, in terms of and every day is different. The workouts are rather consistent. So just looking at the conditioning winter workouts, as I said, you're going in there early in the morning, about an hour and a half. Um, First you start out, so in Haluba, in the indoor facility, there's um actually, I think that they changed it since, but it's basically, you could fit like two half fields going like horizontally in there. They've changed the layout of it, but it's a huge indoor facility. So the first thing that we would do is 2 laps around the whole entire field. So it's more than 100 yards, 100-yard field. It was, I'd say 1.5 fields, call it. And that was a sprint. As soon as they blew that whistle at 5:30, like, you had the strength coaches, you had the coaches screaming at you. Like, if you weren't winning, if your position group wasn't in first, see, there go my dogs. If you weren't in first, like, they would chew you out. So that was a sprint. So right out the gate, like, you're gassed. And then the whole team would get together at midfield, and do some type of competition, like a tire pull, or like maybe like a quick sled competition. And then you get into the workouts where each position group is at a different station, and your first time through the workout. So like in week 1, each station is like 5 minutes maybe, and then each week, each day, they increase it a little bit. So by the time you're into your last week in winter workouts, each station is 12 minutes each. So it increases the volume, the intensity from that aspect. And then from a weightlifting program, I'm trying to remember as best I can, but that's all about the focusing on increasing your maxes. So obviously they have your baseline. Hey, this is your max for bench, squat, clean, deadlift, all that stuff. So it's all about intensity for that, call it 12-week period, of just working up to, max day where you can, increase that max. So it's very intense, winter workouts. There's no on field work, no football, related stuff. I don't think, unless it's changed, you're not allowed to have any footballs on the field. So it's just conditioning, working out, and getting you prepared for, basically spring ball. So that's kind of the program in winter, and we can talk about, other phases or seasons, but winter was all about intensity for sure.
So
Yeah.
was that basically Dwight Galt's philosophy, maxing out in the summer, obviously intensity in the winter, and then maxing out in the summer? Like, what did you guys do off season and like in the summer, for example, and in season in terms of lifting? What kind of stuff did you guys do to not only get better in the summer and then, but it transitioning into in season, how did you maintain your strength? Like, what was his philosophy with that, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, so thinking about the summer, that's when you can start to transition, like football, actual football related stuff. So it's a lot more just quick spurts in terms of speed training. Still trying to work on maxes with, and a lot of our lifts were Olympic lifts and explosive lifts, which kind of correlate to, you think about speed and jumping, and like the testing you see at the combine, very related to trying to improve in those aspects. So it's much more I don't know the right word to use, but it's more explosive than anything else. It's not a whole lot of reps. It's more so just getting, the power, that explosiveness up. And then you look at, in season, it's just kind of maintaining. We don't max out at all. In season, we're still conditioning. We're still lifting, but it's not to the scale, certainly not winter. It's even, drawn back a little bit from summertime. So that's kind of what it is. So looking at the whole year, I'd say there's basically 3 seasons within the program. You have the winter, which is just, as I said, super intense, whole lot of everything all at once. Summer is more speed, explosiveness, focusing on those attributes you see on field. And then in season would just kind of be more so maintaining and injury prevention stuff. So, of course, during the season we have practices and we're a lot busier throughout the day, so we're not lifting as many days. So that's kind of more the laid back season in the weight room, but you're still definitely getting after it.
Awesome. Yeah. And just if we can take just a brief aside for the viewers and the listeners, that makes a lot of sense from a sports science perspective. Obviously the goal in wintertime is we're trying to build up that base level of strength. We can be very intense. We can accumulate volume because we are very far removed from the start of the season. Right. As we get closer to that process, we kind of start drawing down training volumes. We start maybe still doing a little bit of lower volume work to build up maxes still in the summertime. But once we get very, very close to that season, there's that shift in priority. Now we're not focused on getting better in the weight room, getting stronger, because right. Now we have to focus on X's and O's and winning on the football field, and transitioning to maintenance makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So just a brief aside, kind of going over that makes a ton of sense. That's textbook sports science as far as that goes. One thing that I will say, and I don't know offhand how much of this was there or how much it was transitioning to, because now you have the coaches and James, he talks about it pretty much all the time as far as training table and nutrition bars and all this kind of stuff, all the, the hydrotherapy and mm-hmm. cryotherapy type stuff. Any of that stuff, was any of that available to you during your time there, Greg?
Yeah, it was a lot of it was still kind of in the works. Just, when I think about my freshman year to senior year, my freshman year, Lash was, you compare it to what it is today, it was very, it was very old. Like Lash, when I was there my freshman year, was the same Lash when my dad was there in the 80s. Like not much has changed. So yes, we still did have like a cold tub, hot tub. We had nutritionists, but we didn't have like what they have today with that whole nutrition bar, and you could get protein shakes and chocolate milk and all these things. That was more so later in my career. It was I'm trying to think. Lash didn't they didn't finish up like the locker room or weight room until like the summer of my going into my senior season. So in that from that front, I didn't get the full experience of what it is today. I got like 6 to 8 months of it. But I know what they have access to in terms of like massages too and cryotherapy and like actual real nutritionists, like building out a program for you and how it correlates to training table, where back when I went there, it was just kind of, it was getting to that point. But now that it seems like they've really taken it to the next level. So I can't speak to exactly what it looks like, but I know it's a lot more state of the art than what what I saw throughout my career.
Yeah,
Cool.
Justin King was there recently, and he was taking pictures in the new weight room and everything. And the recruits coming in, they've spoken highly of the new facilities, which is fantastic. And obviously NIL, they're catching up with that too. So it's great to see. You know, we've said on here that Franklin's doing a lot of work behind the scenes that people don't know about in terms of facilities and NIL.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's always said, even when I was there, like he will fight for like us players. He wants to give us as much as he possibly can from like a facility standpoint, and like just like the extra stuff, not even thinking about, the facilities, but hey, masseuse is coming in, nutritionist, chefs in training table, like the food they're cooking and how that's correlated to NIL. Like he wants to give the players the most he legally can. That's kind of always been his MO, and it's I'm sure it's rubbed off on a lot of recruits seeing the new facility and how things are run there. So that's always been his philosophy for sure.
Yeah, definitely something that you love to hear. I think, that's echoed by a lot of the recruits. And it does come across very authentic, that aspect of family, and James obviously going out of his way to show that he will do whatever he possibly can for his players to be successful. And
Yeah.
I think now, you didn't have the pleasure of experiencing the dynamic with head coach Franklin and AD Pat Kraft, who was relatively
Sure.
recently
Yep.
hired. I think they together are really making some nice moves and some nice changes. And I think they're speeding up the process with a lot of things, including facilities and a lot of these extra maybe recovery perks as far as massages or training table or nutrition or whatever. Obviously, Pat was former player. He knows how it goes and all that stuff. But I just kind of out of curiosity, did you have any specific thoughts when it turned out that Pat Kraft was the next AD, and kind of some of the early on things that they talked about?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I had heard, just from like inside sources as well as just the general public, everywhere he's been, he's been able to make tremendous strides from the athletic front. I think because he was at Temple before, correct? Before Penn
Correct.
State. So, the things that he was able to develop there, and just lay some different foundations from not only the football program there, but just athletically. Like I said, I haven't heard one bad thing about him still. So from a player's front, it's not something you really necessarily get too in the works of in terms of like what's being developed, new plans to develop, or just new implementations in the program facilities. But just from an outsider looking in, to your point, like they've took a state of the art facility already with the weight room and the therapy rooms, and they've made it like I haven't seen it. I've just seen pictures, but it looks insane. So, hats off to them, and taking advantage of the boosters and all the money that they can to really pump into the program, because to be competitive with recruiting and just competitive on the field, that's something you need to stay on top of and ahead of, and it's really good to see that Pat Kraft he's putting his money where his mouth is for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. He was at Temple for I believe 7 years.
Yep,
Then he had that short stint at BC at Boston College. Then
that's
he
right.
comes to Penn State. But both at Temple, I mean, he did largely most of that work there at Temple. Was involved with Matt Rule's career there and the success he had. But from everything that I've heard as well from the Boston College front and the Temple front, just seemed like a total home run. And the one note that I do want to make sure that we talk about too is the one thing I've noticed from a external communications optics is James Franklin would always beat the drum about NIL and facilities upgrades and all these things. And then Pat gets hired, and it doesn't seem like James really has to talk about that stuff anymore.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, and you see, I don't mean to cut you off, Austin, but you
no, you're
see,
good.
like, I mean, some of the, uh, I mean, the major blue bloods in college football, like, Ryan Day's coming out to the public and saying, "Hey, we are very behind in NIL." Um, other than the last week or two, Alabama has been and Nick Saban has been very hesitant to come out with like a collective and really embracing NIL. Same thing with Clemson and Dabo Sweeney. So again, to really, and I don't think necessarily Alabama needs a whole lot of NIL money, like in terms of recruiting. Nick Saban shows up and has all his rings. He's like, "Hey, if you want to come to Alabama, you're coming to Alabama." But in terms of a team like Penn State and where the landscape of college football is right now, that's you need to stay ahead of the NIL game. So to your point, Austin, I know Mark, you hit on it, like that they've done a really good job of getting ahead, staying ahead, and no one really knows where that NIL landscape is going to go, how it's going to change over time. But they've been doing an awesome job of managing that for players and recruits as well.
Yeah,
Greg,
100%.
I just have a couple of two more questions about the lifting program, and then whatever else Austin wants to ask, and then we can finish up. Chuck Losey, obviously last year was his first year, as we mentioned. He was Dwight Galt's protege, I think is the word. Learned under Dwight Galt. Do you think they're doing similar stuff right now? For the first question.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it definitely seems like it. I know they're going through winter workouts right now. From the pictures, it looks like they're doing the same exact stations as we were doing. From seeing short clips against social media of players doing, squats and power cleans, same things as we were doing. So as far as I can tell, it looks very much mirrored to Coach Galt's program. Yeah.
Now, for our viewers, and being that Drew Aller could be one of the most electric players in all of college football next year, I know you played receiver, and you were special teams guy too. Can you tell us? Can you give us maybe some details as to what is Drew Aller doing in the weight room right now to get himself better and prepare him for the starting quarterback at Penn State, which we're assuming will happen. So
yeah. So I mean, in the wintertime, to be honest with you, it's very little. The program is very little focused on, oh, hey, you're a quarterback, we have to focus on, shoulder flexibility, or hey, you're lineman, so we're going to focus on leg strength and drive. The winter program is very much just intensity, just everything, upper body, lower body, core conditioning. So they're probably not too. I mean, I'm sure they're being smart in terms of what they're doing, obviously, but in terms of position specific stuff, it's probably very little geared towards him being a quarterback. Now I know I've seen it definitely seems like after hours, late at night, him and Haluba just putting in extra work, which is obviously great to see. So in terms of him doing more quarterback related and specific things, that's more so on his own. So in the winter, like I said, it's very much team oriented in terms of what they're doing. Summertime, so I would say probably in the next month as they transition into spring ball here, it's going to be a transition into more position related stuff where it is more flexibility stuff. It's more stretching. Obviously going to be a little bit lighter weight for quarterbacks. Less intense things, but right now I would assume it's very much intense in his world right now.
do you know what he'll be doing, I guess, in the summer and in season that would be more specific to him as a quarterback? Any idea?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the lifts, it's still everybody has the same, day to day. Like, hey, today we're doing the, hang clean with this lift and this superset and this lift and this superset. So that is probably going to be the same for everybody. I remember before, like I want to say like 15 minutes before, 15 minutes after each workout. So you have your like position strength coach. So I know Chuck Losey was more geared towards offensive linemen, defensive linemen. Alvin Futrell was DBs. Barry Gant was receivers. So I had Barry. So each position group kind of had their individual coaches as well. So before and after, like for instance, we would work a lot before and after with hip flexibility and like a lot of knee stuff and shoulder stuff. Whereas lineman was, I don't even know what the linemen were doing, to be honest with you. But for like quarterback stuff, it was like a lot of I know in Pittsburgh we call them gummy bands, like the I don't even know what the real term of them are. The stretchy bands that they would do a lot with shoulders and like neck stuff, and that sort of thing, and footwork. So in terms of the hour that they have in the weight room, it's the same for everybody, but 15 minutes before, 15 minutes afterwards, it's more so the stretching, injury prevention, and footwork stuff, especially as a quarterback.
Well, I remember when I was at football camp, Jay Paterno was one of my coaches, and the one drill, I forget what we did, but at the end, he said it was one of Daryl Clark's favorite drills. At the end of practice, when they were all tired, they used to do it. It was a drill where they kind of told you where to throw the ball. You do a 3-step drop, and then they would say hit green, and you throw to the green pad, and then do a 3-step drop, throw to the red one. It was a drill they always did at the end. And I remember doing that at the end of one of our practices, and it was cool because you were tired and you had to focus. But I remember that's one thing Jay Paterno mentioned. Obviously he's not a coach anymore at Penn State, but yeah, I figured that they were probably doing something similar to that too. But yeah, Greg, I appreciate those details. Because man, we're all excited. We're all excited about this team, and particularly Drew Aller, because he was such a high recruit, and he's got a ton of potential. So
yeah, could be an elite player. I'm hoping. I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse, but I think he could be a generational talent. Where I think he could be an instant Heisman candidate. So especially with the talent around him. So I know we're all hopeful. I'll say that.
I mean, your dad played with Blackledge, and then we had Kerry Collins. Those are two guys that really stand out to, I think, most fans. And then for me personally, Daryl Clark and Michael Robinson, two other guys that really stand out now. Do you think Drew Aller can be as good as, let's say, Kerry Collins and Todd Blackledge? Like, do you think he can be better than them?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at his pedigree coming from high school. I think there's no question. Now, the only thing, and it's not necessarily a concern, but I'm very curious. You see this transition really at all levels of football, NFL, in college especially, where the quarterback is now expected not only to have an insanely strong and accurate arm, but they also have to get it done with their feet as well. And we've seen it with Trace and with Clifford as well. And with his size, and I haven't seen him move too much. I know he's scrambled a little bit, in some of the games we've seen him in last season. But I'm curious to see how more of a big pocket passer like Drew Aller will be able to incorporate this RPO running game into his game too. Because you look at the Penn State offense, since I've been there, since Joe Moorhead has been there, and the offense has obviously transitioned and taken on some new levels in recent years. But it's still very much a part of college football. It's still very much part of Penn State's offensive game plans. So that's one aspect that I'm curious to see. I have no concerns with his arm. And like I said, it's not necessarily concern, more of a curiosity on my front in terms of how well he can move.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. That's probably fair
Yeah.
to say. He's definitely not a small guy by
Yeah.
any stretch. He's a big dude, no doubt about it. I think on that point too, I'll just give just a brief perspective that I have. I think the most important thing is that he's already shown a willingness to move.
Yeah.
Um, again, limited time, small sample size. We all understand that, but you have a lot of guys, particularly I'll use this as the example in CJ Stroud in Ohio State. He was relatively mobile, but he just refused to move at all.
Right.
I mean, he really didn't want to escape the pocket. He didn't want
Yeah.
to run.
Same
Any of
thing with
those.
Justin Fields too, like at Ohio State. I know in the NFL this past season, he kind of evolved his game from that front. But yeah, and I don't mean to cut you off. That was just another Ohio State quarterback that came to mind. But yeah, he was kind of hesitant to run in college as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, I think that's a great point. I think that willingness is a really positive sign. Again, it doesn't need to be a bunch.
Yeah.
We've seen what happened with even Trace here and there, playing games where he obviously was not 100%. Sean Clifford, very obviously playing games where seemingly, I remember that what was that 2021 Illinois game where seemingly he couldn't really even move much at all. To any meaningful degree, playing through all kinds of bumps and bruises and tweaks and things. So obviously you need to be sparingly with it. I think everyone is just so enamored by the prospects of just his physical gifts and his
Yeah.
arm talent and what he potentially could be. I know there were some accuracy issues a little bit here or there, mostly a footwork thing and an arm path thing. I think now, if he does win the job, presumably, I think those added reps where he's getting the bulk of them in practice, I think that will go a long way right off the bat in just kind of getting that muscle memory and kind of just refining all those processes.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there's very few players at quarterback that come out of high school with absolutely no concerns or issues. Like obviously an 18-year-old is not going to be, prime Tom Brady out there with perfect footwork and perfect accuracy and all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is a big offseason for him in terms of fully learning the offense, getting down fundamentals and footwork, and getting back to the weight room, just getting stronger, getting more explosive. He's going to get faster. Like everybody going through that program gets stronger, gets faster. So that this is going to be an exciting year for him, for Penn State, and hopefully, it'll show in the win-loss column. So, yeah, I think we're in for a good 2023. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just have two more things. And then if Mark has a couple extras too. First one's a little bit of a comedy question. I just want to know your opinion. Just a yes or no. Does Chuck Losey have perhaps the best strength and conditioning mustache in college football?
The only other person that would come to mind, I'll say yes, he does. I would say yes, he does. But the only other strength coach that it even comes close is what is it? Is it Feld? I know he was at
Aaron Feld.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's at
Aaron
Miami
Feld.
now.
He's
Yeah.
at Miami now. He was at Oregon. And
Can
that's
you guys see that?
yeah,
In the
exactly.
stash.
You put them back to back like they could be brothers. But yeah, Chuck is he owns that look, man. He certainly owns it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
100%.
I think he takes the crown. Yeah.
100%. I entirely agree. That was the one joke I wanted to get in there.
Yeah.
I love Deej, love Dwight Galt. Thought he was phenomenal. If nothing else, we got an upgrade in the stash game.
No doubt. Yeah.
With Chuck. I guess just kind of generally kind of tying everything together, given the state of the program, given their uptick in recruiting, which Mark and I have covered extensively over many, many, many weeks. What are you specifically most excited about for the 2023 season?
I'm most excited about just this offense as a whole. You know, you look at what those running backs did their freshman seasons and the jump they are inevitably going to make going into year 2 and year 3. Same thing at the quarterback position. Presumably, Drew Aller can, take the QB1 position. The jump he'll make going from, I mean, technically this will be his first year. He still was able to take a red shirt, so still getting experience from his redshirt year and having this be his real first season, as well as some of these transfers that we got at receiver. I know Dante Cephas is explosive as a receiver you'll find, and some of the guys returning that we had on the team, as well as what is it? Is it Cunningham from Florida State? I can't remember his name, but the long
McLean, Malik
yeah,
McLean.
yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. He seems like a tall, physical receiver. So I'm excited to see the receiver group. And this is really the first time heading into a season where I feel very confident with the offensive line. You look across the board, the returners, the new guys that are coming in, it just seems very solid. Like in the tight end group, yeah, we lost Strange, but we have, Theo Johnson and Kennedy and younger kids that are going to come in and, perform as well. So looking at this offensive side, I mean, I don't pay too much attention to, other teams right now. But I think the offense is in for, a top year. Like I see no reason why they won't have, a top 5 scoring offense next year.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really high on the offense and the prospects. On just some recent shows going over coaching and kind of coaching grades and all these types of things.
Yeah.
Phil Troutline, offensive line coach, doing a heck of a job as far as talent evaluation and recruiting, as well as development. I completely agree with what you said. I do feel for the first time going into the season, like, man, this offensive line, like, man, they can be really good. They can be really good. Tight end depth of talent has been exceptional. Ty Howell doing a heck of a job at the tight end coach position. Overall pleased with everything there. I think this could be one of the better offenses that we've seen since Joe Moorhead has been here.
I agree.
Is that it for you, Austin? Yeah,
that's it for me.
Greg, just to take us out here. What's our record this year, particularly for 23? Do we make the playoff here in the next 3 years? At least make the playoff? Those are my 2 questions. And you know what, man? More than anything, what I want is for guys like you, especially from that 2016 team, to be able to go to like a playoff game or a national title game and be able to watch that, because like I said at the beginning, your class, that team laid the foundation, in my opinion, for what we have now. And obviously the 2012 team too, the guys that stay behind. I want you guys to be able to go to that game because you guys deserve that. So record this year, and then do we make the playoff here in the next 3 years?
Yeah, appreciate that. You're putting me on the spot. Just considering everything that we've talked about, and I know we have high hopes, and I do think there is going to be some growing pains, at the quarterback position. Especially when I think about going through the Big Ten and playing Michigan and Ohio State. Having essentially a freshman quarterback year 1 where he's taken, full reins of the offense. I think it would be very hard to expect, going to this season, him just going through Michigan and Ohio State as both wins. I hope he can do it. It's yet to be determined, obviously, but I just think there's one loss there. I think especially just looking at an established older team, it's hard to beat Michigan and Ohio State in 1 year, let alone a young redshirt freshman quarterback. So I think we're going to see a loss, either Michigan or Ohio State, but I think we can get the job done. Otherwise, whether that puts us in the playoff or not, I think it would. You look at two Big Ten teams making the playoff this past season. I don't think there was any reason why that can't happen again. And shoot, I can't even think if there's ever been a one-loss team that hasn't made the playoff. Maybe back in 2014, 2015 when TCU was kind of snubbed. Well, I think it was 2014.
Yeah,
I think that sounds correct. Yeah.
I don't know if they had one loss or two loss, but it seems like if you only have one loss, it seems like you should be good for the playoff. And I don't think if we're in that position where we have one loss, I don't think they could hose Penn State again. I think, just thinking back to 2016, I think the committee, I don't know if they necessarily wake up every day and have regrets that they didn't put Penn State in the playoff, but I think we should have been there. And I know I'm a little bit biased, but I don't think they would do that to us again. At least I hope they wouldn't. So to answer your question, one loss, we'll say, and I think that'll get us in the playoffs, which will be exciting.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, hey, playoffs this year, I'll take it. Obviously. Yeah. One thing I've noticed that you just mentioned is 2016. I've noticed that pretty much I feel like if Penn State doesn't go undefeated, we're going to get screwed over. Whether we lose to Michigan or Ohio State, man, I don't know. That's just the way. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I just feel like we're getting screwed over unless the fate of Penn State is taken into their own hands, where they go undefeated, or they at least beat Ohio State. Man, we're gonna get screwed over in some way. But I don't know, man. I hope you're right.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. But no, I think as long as that 2-loss territories is that gray area, and I think in the next couple of years that'll be alleviated with the expanded playoff and everything. But no, I think with one loss, and assuming that one loss will be to Michigan, Ohio State, who is presumably going to be in the top 10, maybe even top 5 again this year. I think that should put us in, but you never know, man. You never know. Their love for Ohio State and the SEC, again, you never know. So, man, we'll see. I hope you're wrong.
I think all the committee members were secretly watching the Pac-12 title game, and they were very much backing the Utes, because if USC went down, we can feel good about putting Ohio State in the playoff. I think they like that outcome. But again, a lot of things going on. Mark and I have talked about it once before. Ohio State's going to have to break in a new quarterback in the post CJ Stroud era. So, all the teams have to do this. Obviously we flip. Michigan comes to our place this coming season. We have to go to the Horseshoe. So a lot of things going on. Who knows if Ohio State and presumably Kyle McCord being the starting quarterback for the first time, what if he underperforms? What if there's parity? What if they don't have a quarterback? If that's the case, that team seems a whole lot more reasonable to beat even away, if you have maybe a little bit of lackluster quarterback play. So a lot of things to play out. But I think the sentiment, and I think it will be echoed by both of you and a lot of the fans, is we're just excited. We're excited for the state of the program, where things are at, and where they're heading.
No doubt about it. Like I said, should be an exciting year for the Nittany Lions.
Absolutely. Anything else, Mark?
No, Greg, thanks again, man, for joining us. We'd love to have you on as much as we can. Austin usually takes us out, but yeah, man, I just wanted to thank you personally for joining us. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming on. So
No doubt, guys. Always a pleasure, for sure.
100%. Folks,
Austin,
that is.
I'll link. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll link
Sure.
our old interview with Greg down below from
Yeah,
Spotify,
absolutely.
which we are back on Spotify, just so you guys know. So.
Yep, I was going to make a note of that. We are back on Spotify for all those folks that do like to listen to it, maybe when they're in their cars or whatever. So that will be linked in the video description box below. As per usual, that is the final word. If you like the video, please like the video. Subscribe if you're not, as always. Dive into that comment section. Join the conversation. Tell Greg how much you love him and how much you appreciate that he came on and joined us today and gave us all that great insight into the lifting program and future outlook for next season. Personally, I want to thank you, Greg, for coming on. It's always a great conversation to have you here. And obviously, we'd love to have you back. We always enjoy this time with you. And like I said, everybody, please check out our previous interview with Greg. And we hope to have him back soon. But as always, we'll catch you in the next one.